The air in this room doesn't just get cold, it turns clinical. It strips the skin of its warmth and replaces it with a biting silver indifference. I stand in the center of a minimalist mirror gallery, 50 stories above the Chicago Loop. I do not look at my face. I look at the reflections, hundreds of them, overlapping like the blueprints of a city that was never meant to be built. In these mirrors, my body is just a series of angles, a column of light, a structural anomaly in a room of perfect glass. Every building has a soul, I whisper. My voice is a low vibration, a hum that barely disturbs the dust motes. But my father's building, his empire, it was constructed on the geometry of a lie. And lies. Lies have no load-bearing capacity. They are the air pockets in the concrete, the rust in the rebar, the silence before the collapse. 3 years ago, 3:14 a.m. The storm outside the Evans estate didn't howl. It hissed. The foyer was a cathedral of white marble and hollow echoes. My father, Judge Richard Evans, stood beneath the crystal chandelier, his shadow stretching across the floor like an accusing finger. His face was a mask of calculated, judicial fury. "You are a thief, Cassandra," he said. His voice was quiet, dangerous, the sound of a gavel hitting mahogany. "To take kickbacks from a contractor, to soil this name for a few $1,000s. It is a structural failure I cannot overlook." Beside him stood Beatrice. She held a black leather portfolio to her chest, my portfolio. She wore a silk robe the color of spilled wine. Her eyes were wide with a practiced, liquid sorrow, but I saw the corners of her mouth. A micro-expression, a twitch of victory. "I found the bank transfers in her desk, Father," Beatrice whispered. Her voice was like velvet over a blade. I didn't want to believe it. My own sister, trying to sabotage the firm. I looked at the grandfather clock in the corner. The pendulum swung with a heavy, metallic thud. Tick, tick, tick. And then the sound died. The wind outside ceased. The crackle of the fireplace vanished. A silence so thick it felt like being buried in wet sand descended upon the room. I looked at the clock. The pendulum had frozen mid-swing. The hands were locked. Sandian Shursufen, the constant of the circle. The ratio of a cycle that never ends. My father was still speaking, his mouth moving in slow motion, but no sound came out. The world had paused to record the exact moment of my execution. I didn't defend myself. To defend oneself is to acknowledge the validity of the lie. I simply reached down and picked up my old leather briefcase, the only thing in that house that actually belonged to me. But I didn't leave empty-handed. I walked to the mahogany desk and laid down a singular sheet of vellum. It was a drawing of a dumb hung, a cantilever so beautiful it looked maverick, almost supernatural. The lines were delicate, tracing a curve that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. "I left a gift for you on the desk, Beatrice," I said, though I knew she couldn't hear me through the static of her own greed. A blueprint for the future. The golden ratio perfected. I knew she would take it. I knew she would claim it as her own. She was a scavenger of genius, and I had just handed her a feast. She didn't know that the calculus was flawed. I had hidden a death code in the elegant curves of that drawing. A mathematical parasite. An equation that looked perfect on paper, but was designed to wake up only when the building reached its critical mass. I walked out of the front door and into the blizzard. I didn't take a coat. I didn't take a car. I walked until the Evans estate was nothing but a flickering orange light in a sea of white. I was not a victim. I was a blueprint being redrawn. I moved 1,000 miles without moving at all. I stayed in the city, but I moved into the shadows. I changed my name to Cassandra Vance. Vance. A name that sounds like a sigh. A name that leaves no trace. I spent 3 years studying the physics of failure. I watched from a distance as the Evans Tower began to rise in the heart of the loop, a $500 million masterpiece of glass and steel, Beatrice's masterpiece. But I can hear it, even from 50 stories away. I can hear the steel starting to wake up. The concrete is starting to remember the lie. Last Tuesday, a notification appeared on my monitor. The tower had reached its 80th floor. The critical mass has been achieved. The clocks in my mind have started ticking again. The audit has begun, I whisper to the mirrors. I am no longer the girl in the snow. I am the director of urban planning. I am the shadow in the blueprint, and the winter of silence is about to end with a scream of twisting metal. The Bureau of Urban Planning is a labyrinth of quiet authority, a fortress of gray corridors and hushed secrets. I sit in the corner office on the top floor. The name on the door reads Director Vance, but I am a ghost in this machine. I do not attend the galas. I do not sign the vanity projects. I exist in the shadows of the infrastructure, moving the city's bones like a puppeteer, while I sit in the silence of my obsidian and glass sanctuary. A few miles away, the Evans Tower is screaming. The reports cross my desk every morning. Incidents, anomalies. The steel beams groan at midnight, a long, low, metallic shriek that echoes through the empty elevator shafts. The workers call it the phantom's breath. 2 crane operators quit last week. They claimed they saw a figure standing on the edge of the 82nd floor. A silhouette of a woman who dissolved into the fog before they could reach her. They say the building feels wrong, as if the very geometry is rejecting the ground it stands upon. They are not wrong. Physics is a jealous god, and I am its prophet. I spend my nights in the dark. The only light in my office comes from the holographic 3D model of the Evans Tower. It glows a pale, sickly blue, a skeleton of light floating in the air. I tap a command into my terminal. My fingers move with the precision of a surgeon. In the real world, at the construction site, the obstruction lights on the summit flicker, pulse, pause, pulse. I place my hand over my chest. I feel the steady thrum of my own heart. I adjust the sync. Now, every time my heart beats, the summit of their empire flashes in the dark. I am the internal clock of that building. I am the pulse in its concrete veins. I am the heartbeat of your ruin, Father. I whisper to the blue glow. I am the ghost you tried to bury, and now, I am the only thing keeping your walls standing. Across the city, in the penthouse of the old Evans estate, Beatrice is unraveling. She sits at her mahogany drafting table, the same one she stole from me. The blueprints for the tower are spread out before her. They are beautiful. They are mine. But Beatrice can no longer read them. She stares at the lines, the elegant dumb hung, the complex load-bearing calculations. She feels the design eating her mind. When she blinks, the lines seem to shift. The ink moves like black snakes across the vellum. The angles she once thought she understood now look like occult sigils, mocking her, shifting every time she tries to measure them. She tries to correct the death code I left for her, but every adjustment only deepens the flaw. She hasn't slept in 4 days. She sees the number 1.618 etched into the back of her eyelids. She looks in the mirror and sees the reflection of a woman who is building her own monument, only to be crushed beneath it. She is a scavenger who found a poisoned feast, and she is too proud to stop eating. And then, there is my father. Richard Evans is a man of logic, a man of laws. But logic is a fragile thing when it is haunted by a constant. It started with a single, white envelope. No return address. Inside, a single slip of paper with a number printed in a clinical typewriter font. 1.618. He threw it away, but the number followed him. He saw it on his morning bank statement, a balance that ended in those exact digits. He saw it in the cracks of the marble in his foyer. 3 distinct fractures that met at a perfect phi angle. He saw it in his nightmares. A gargantuan tower built of glass and bone, stretching toward the sky in a spiral that never ended, until it pierced the sun. He is starting to see it on the skin of his own hands. The golden ratio, the divine proportion, the mathematical proof of my existence. He sits in his study, the lights dimmed, clutching a scotch. He looks at the wall. The shadows of the blinds cast long, dark stripes across the room. He counts them. 1, 6, 1, 8. His breathing is shallow, erratic. He knows the phantom is in the room with him. He knows the ghost doesn't want his life. It wants his legacy. Who are you? He gasps into the dark. I do not answer him. Not yet. I simply type a final command. 100 miles of fiber optic cables hum. 1,000 sensors vibrate. Deep in the foundation of the Evans Tower, a singular, microscopic crack appears in the primary support column. The countdown is no longer in my head. It is in the stone. The grand ballroom of the Evans Tower is a hall of mirrors and mist, a masquerade where the masks are the only honest things in the room. The air is thick with the scent of expensive lilies and even more expensive lies. Richard stands at the center of the orbit, holding a crystal flute of champagne, his chest puffed with the hollow pride of a man who believes he has finally conquered the sky. Beside him, Beatrice is draped in gold, her eyes hidden behind a diamond-encrusted mask, laughing at a joke she didn't hear. They believe they are at the summit. They believe the Evans name is now written in the stars. They do not notice the subtle vibration in the floor, a low-frequency hum that makes the champagne in their glasses ripple in perfect concentric circles. Idir lui ba, the frequency of the ghost. The music, a sweeping Vivaldi concerto, suddenly stutters. The lights do not flicker. They dim to a cold industrial gray. The mist from the dry ice machines thickens, swirling around the feet of the elite like a rising tide. The gilded elevator doors at the end of the hall chime. Sandian Shasifen. I step out. I am not wearing silk. I am not wearing a mask. I am dressed in ash gray utility gear, reinforced, professional, sterile. In my right hand, I hold a handheld seismic sensor. In my left, a tablet displaying a waterfall of red code. The guests part like a fractured sea. The silence that follows is not a lack of noise. It is a vacuum. Richard's glass hits the marble floor. Clang. It doesn't shatter. It just rolls, mocking him. Cassandra, he gasps. His voice is the sound of a crumbling statue. What is the meaning of this? This is my night. My tower. I do not stop walking until I am standing 5 feet away from him. I do not look at his face. I look at the structural seam in the wall behind him. The night is over, Father, I say. My voice is a flat line on a monitor. Devoid of heat. Devoid of hate. The audit has reached its final phase. Suddenly, the PA system crackles. The music is replaced by a sound that chills the marrow of everyone in the room. Tick, tick, tick. A steady, rhythmic, electronic countdown. What is that? Beatrice screams, tearing off her mask. Her face is a map of terror. Is it a bomb? Did you plant a bomb? No, Beatrice, I say. My eyes finally meeting hers, cold as a winter morning in the loop. It's not a bomb. It's the sound of your own architecture. It's the death code I left for you 3 years ago. It's been waiting in the server room, waiting for the building to reach the 82nd floor, waiting for the weight to exceed the truth. I turn back to my father. I point the seismic sensor toward the towering glass walls that overlook the city. The ticker on my tablet is screaming. The vibrations are no longer subtle. The mirrors in the hall begin to sing. A high-pitched, haunting, metallic wail. Do you hear that, Father? I ask. My voice is quiet, yet it cuts through the panic like a diamond through glass. That is the sound of the steel crying. It is the sound of the tension reaching the limit of the lie you buried beneath this foundation. Richard reaches for me, his hand shaking. Desperate. Cassandra, please, fix it. You were always the genius. Fix the code. Save the name. I look at his hand. I do not flinch. You cannot fix physics with a bribe, Richard. You cannot audit a soul once it's been liquidated. I step closer, my words landing like heavy stones in a deep well. Gravity is reclaiming its due. The truth is demanding its space. I didn't destroy this tower. Your greed did. I just gave it a voice. The countdown on the speakers reaches 03, 02, 01, 0. The sound stops. The silence is deafening. I turn and walk toward the exit. I do not run. I move with the measured pace of a person who has already seen the end. Just as I reach the threshold of the ballroom, I stop. I do not look back. Ting. A sound as delicate as a spider's silk. On the massive, floor-to-ceiling glass pane behind Richard, a singular, microscopic crack appears. It begins at the exact center, the phi point. Then, it explodes in slow motion, not into shards, but into a massive, shimmering, silver spiderweb that covers the entire view of Chicago. The building doesn't fall. It just sighs. The guests scream, rushing for the stairs. But they are already too late. The tower has been declared a dead zone. The infrastructure has locked itself down. The elevators are dead. The power is severed. The Evans Tower is now a $500 million tomb, a vertical monument to a failure that can never be erased. Ext. Chicago Loop. Night. I stand on the sidewalk, the cold wind from Lake Michigan whipping my hair across my face. Behind me, the Evans Tower stands in total darkness, a jagged silhouette of obsidian against the city lights. It is surrounded by miles of yellow police tape. Red and blue sirens splash against its silent glass. It is a void in the heart of the city. I reach into my pocket and pull out the old grandfather clock's pendulum, the one I took from the estate 3 years ago. Beside it, I pull out my old watch. The hands have been frozen at 3:14 for 3 years. I wind the crown. Click, click, click. The second hand twitches. Then it moves. Thick, thick, thick. The circle is closed. The cycle is complete. I look up at the dark tower one last time. Every structure pays the price for imbalance, I whisper, my voice vanishing into the winter wind. I didn't destroy them. I only returned the emptiness they gave me. I turn and walk away, a shadow among shadows, lost in the perfect geometry of the night.